Christmas horror movies have always been somewhat of a mixed bag. I mean, I get it. It's hard to make Christmas, a holiday around joy and cheer, scary. I mean, let's be honest, Frosty the Snowman isn't exactly an eldritch abomination that would haunt you in your sleep. I mean, for all I know. But boy, do some of these filmmakers actually try to make this holiday scary.
Garbage Day! Huh? No!
And I mean, they really try, to the point that Christmas horror movies have become their own little niche within the horror space in the film industry. But the quality of each of these films is going to vary extremely, with some being really good, to some being just mediocre, to some of them being just downright hilarious.
Well, it ain't fucking Frosty!
So in this film, I want to cover 3 films, each of which will be in one of 3 categories. One will be good, one will be mediocre, and one will be terrible. But remember, before we go any further, remember to like and subscribe on the video, and if you like this video, let me know down below your thoughts on this video. Now let's get on with it. First off, we're covering the 1974 classic Black Christmas. I've seen this film multiple times over the years. It just doesn't get old. It's gotten to the point that this is my annual Christmas film that I watch each year for the horror section. So the film follows a sorority, as I believe to be in the University of Toronto, but it's never explicitly told to us, even though some of the characters have extremely Canadian accents. And the film was also filmed on the University of Toronto, so that's just my guess of that's probably where it's supposed to be set in, but I could be wrong. In the sorority, the girls start to go missing one by one as they are seemingly murdered by some random stranger who lives in the house's attic. And in this film, they show a startling amount of early slasher tropes that people didn't think were invented until 1978 with Halloween. But there are so many scenes in this film that look like films that came afterwards, one of which of course being the POV shot that's used throughout the film that is eerily similar to what Halloween would do 4 years later. So it's interesting to see where a lot of the goofy slasher film tropes that we have seen over the years have originated from. It's also a great watch because even though the film is shot in a way that has been done to death, it's also filmed in a way that would have been done by another famous Christmas movie a couple of years later. You probably won't have guessed it, but yes, Black Christmas is directed by the same man who 9 years later would direct The Christmas Story. I absolutely love that we live in the universe of the man who created a dark and gritty slasher film like Black Christmas, one that was way ahead of its time, created a super kid-friendly Christmas movie that was beloved by families for years. But back to Black Christmas. Some of the things that just really work for me is the film generally follows the less is more principle throughout. As for example, almost every kill in the film is only shown for like 3 or 4 seconds. You generally only see the beginning of the kill. Many other low budget slasher films did this to save money, but I think it helps build tension because it also allows your brain to fill in the gaps about what might have been happening to them. I also can't talk about this film without talking about the truly one on-screen kill, that of course being the death of Barb. In this shockingly brutal scene for a 70s film, we see Barb, who throughout the film has behaved somewhat erratically, as she is an alcoholic in the film and is also seen as somewhat of an annoyance by the other characters. Just beforehand, she had passed out from another drunken stupor, where she is startled awake by the man from the attic watching her. She freaks out, having an asthma attack, which causes Jess to run upstairs and check up on her, but of course Jess sees nothing. So Jess goes downstairs, where she is greeted by a choir, which leads to the beautifully disturbing masterpiece of a scene where Barb wakes up to a man only showing his eye as he uses a unicorn horn near her bed to impale her. This scene is shockingly brutal, but really elevates the film as it shows the film didn't stray away from showing anything and is shot in a way that still shocks the audience but keeps it almost beautiful in a way. Overall, that scene is just one of the many reasons that this film works, along with the film's sense of humor that keeps the slow scenes from being too slow and keeps the film going in a way that is actually interesting. I will, however, say that this film is not perfect. I don't know if it's just the Blu-ray copy I have or if the film is just mixed poorly, but the audio always bothers me with this one. I've seen many early horror films, so I know the audio isn't generally too big of an issue, but I think it might just not be mixed properly on the latest version, as for some reason my speakers do not like this film, and when I watch it, it's generally very, very quiet, so I can't hardly hear what they're saying throughout the film. The other problem I have is that sometimes the acting can be somewhat corny. You can really tell it's budget sometimes, but these issues are relatively minor compared to other problems I have with the films that are coming up, for example. I mean, we are literally talking about Christmas horror movies. The bar isn't exactly through the roof for this category of film. So overall, I would recommend this film for your Christmas viewing, and overall I give it a 8 out of 10. I really tried to like this film. I mean it. I really tried to like it, but I just couldn't keep myself interested while watching this film. Of course, for the mediocre film, I'm covering P2, a 2007 film which you probably have already forgotten about, written by Alexandre Aja, I think that's how it's pronounced, of the Hills Have Eyes remake fame, and is known for his films having extreme levels of gore and generally having a pretty similar style and grit level to that of Eli Roth films. But man, does his style just not work for me, as I think the extreme level of grit and gore is just boring and gratuitous. The film follows a businesswoman who gets trapped in a parking garage by a psychopath looking to kill her after she rejects him. It's a super simple plot with not much to talk about, but the plot shows a couple of the problems I have with the film. First off, the location that you spend 90% of the film in, by the way, is extremely boring and uninteresting to look at. See, I don't consider parking garages as something that I would consider to be that interesting to look at, as just a boring, dull and gray space that is made just to hold cars, and that's about it. It's essentially just a gray box in the sky, so why would they pick this as a location to keep the movie in for the whole time? You could have any other large space that would work better, but better than a fucking parking lot. I literally was wondering the whole time, why did they think this location was a good idea, besides the obvious of it being a cheap location to film in. It got me thinking that the reason they did it was probably just all due to monetary reasons, but I could be wrong. This film isn't exactly a low budget film, and it has an $8 million budget. For horror, that's pretty good. So I wonder where the budget went if they were just going to film in the parking garage. It's pretty much just a plain old parking garage. There isn't really much set design here, it's just a parking garage. And the Christmas theme is more so just Christmassy like decorations, and he sings White Christmas in the film if I remember right. All I know is that this film was just extremely forgetful. I hardly remember any of the film, and as of recording I watched it yesterday and I still have forgotten 90% of it. It's just that uninteresting. There's nothing new and original here to look at. The gore is overdone in the way that many other 2000s horror films are done. The gritty style is just plain unappealing to me, as I didn't like it when Hostel did it, as I think it's just ugly and annoying to look at. It's just something about that style has never truly appealed to me, and that could just be my taste, but looking at other reviews on the film, it seems my opinion is pretty normal for the film, actually. I don't think the film is a terrible concept, and I don't think the film itself is unwatchable, but I think I enjoyed myself the least amount while watching this one compared to the other ones. Because even though the last film I'm covering is bad, at least it was truly watchable and it was somewhat enjoyable to watch. Overall, I would say this film is nothing to write home about. It's just an average middle-of-the-road horror film that you've probably seen dozens of times. I'd overall give it a 4 out of 10. Did you ever think Frosty the Snowman needed to go on a menacingly evil killing rampage in a small town? Well, I have a film for you then. That being 1997's Jack Frost. Jack Frost is a 1997 direct-to-video slasher film about a serial killer who gets mutated into a killer snowman when he gets in a car accident with a chemical waste truck on his way to his new holding cell. Then he goes on a killing rampage within the city while in the goofiest looking costume known to man and making awful puns along the way.
Gosh, I only asked you for a smoke.
This film is hilariously bad, and not in the way the film was intending. The acting is the most goofy, awful acting that you can possibly see. The punchlines are so bad and corny that they make you laugh in a way that also makes you cringe while watching it. This film is 100% real, which is really funny to me and crazy to me that this film actually exists. A film about a killer snowman that terrifies a small town. How in any world is this film real? It feels like a joke film that would be used in a comedy film as like the scary film that's being shown in the theaters in the film. The one really bad thing I'll say about this film is that even though this film has funny parts, the film is just terrible because the scenes without the snowman are just plain boring. Like seriously, it's like they had no idea what to do during the film when they didn't have the snowman on screen. I think this film though was saved by the over-the-top death scenes. The death scenes in this film are the most over-the-top that you'll see, as you'll see people die in the most crazy ways in this film. From getting decapitated by a sled to getting killed by Christmas lights, this film is just so over-the-top and wacky. It's made even funnier by the awful costume that the monster is in. The monster doesn't look like it has snow on it, it's just like a really badly made like felt costume it looks like. It's pretty funny every time you see it, and the big black eyes is really funny on it. And the costume just makes every scene with the snowman just that much more entertaining. It's just so funny to watch. It's just so entertaining every time that thing pops on screen. It just makes you laugh. I love the way the costume just awkwardly turns when he runs over the guy a bunch of times because it looks really, really bad. It's so funny every time I watch it because just you can tell the effects just weren't working. It was just a bad costume. The costume is just so like stilty looking. It just doesn't work. It's just a really bad costume, and at every scene it's in is just really, really funny. I think one of my favorite deaths in the film was the death of the boyfriend with the awful corny lines and the over-the-top way the icicle shootout with its extremely low budget showing especially. The scene works so well in a comedic way. My overall thoughts of the film is I think it's just a comedic mess. It really just shows off what happens with an extremely low budget in many of the scenes, especially when there's a lot of things that are just going wrong with this film. 2 out of 10. Wow, some of those were really something. But in all seriousness, Christmas horror movies truly are a mixed bag. Some I would say can be quite good while others leave a lot to be desired, and some are just plain boring. But before concluding this video, I'd like to say a quick message to my viewers that are watching. Thank you for all watching my content. I know I've been doing this for years now, and it really makes me happy to see my channel now doing so well. So seriously, thank you for the 500 subs. I think that's crazy. I never thought I was going to get to this point. This is wild. I've just been doing this for fun over the years, and it's just crazy to see my videos getting thousands of views. I was never expecting that to happen. Thank you guys so much, and I truly mean that. These videos are truly just passion projects, so I'm glad you guys are liking these videos. I've been just doing these once a week to just keep myself busy and having fun doing it along the way. I'm just so happy to see all the positive recognition that they're getting. Like, all the likes are just making me feel so great. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful Christmas, and I'll see you guys next week.